Hello and welcome to a new video. Today we're gonna take a look at a special top teams episode here, this time around for the community day. And so we're going to only take a look at some teams today with the Quagsire as well as the Clodsire. So definitely if you want to see more of this type of content, feel free to leave a like and subscribe. If you haven't already, only 42.9% are actually subscribed to the channel. It's free, feel free to do it. And we can move on immediately with the video. So first off, here's going to be a little bit of a summary about like the Quagsire first. This is going to be kind of interesting as well, like some cores that you can use, for example, like the Gligar, like the Mantine, which is really good together because like Mantine is very decent against grass type Pokemon, even though it's part water. Same goes for Pelipper. So flying type Pokemon mainly because you have a double weakness to grass, which is like the main weakness for it. You don't need XL Candy. 0, 15, 14 seems to be the best IV spread for this Pokemon, and you see all the charged and fast moves here on the screen. Honestly, I feel like Water Gun is kind of underrated. I kind of want to try it out with Water Gun eventually as well, but like honestly, Water Gun, Awkward Tail plus Mud Bomb looks like a fun moveset as well, but we mainly gonna take a look today at the Mud Shot, which is seemingly the better move to go for. A lot of different options as well, but mainly you want to go for either the Awkward Tail, Mud Bomb, Stone Edge, or Earthquake, depending on which scenario you're in. Basically, for the non-Shadow variant, I would recommend you to try out Earthquake over Mud Bomb if you're running Awkward Tail, allowing you to hit a little bit harder, which I feel like might be very decent for this Pokemon. But let's take a look at 3 different teams with this Mudboy. Mudboy team number 1 is kind of like a standard one here. It's kind of what you kind of see as well with like something like a Swampert, where you would use something more like the Sableye Say-Swap there. You can also use here the Charger Bug, which I kind of find interesting. This Pokemon is a little bit better than it looks here on paper. Charger Bug actually can always win back switch advantage against Lickitung in the 2-shield scenario as well, if you have the right IV spread, which is kind of cool, like just very bulky one. So that's going to definitely help you out quite a bit. Also, Charger Bug going to be nice against Medicham, basically breaking this core in general. And now with Awkward here, you're going to have a fairly okayish time against Gligar, which is kind of cool with this Pokemon, so you're going to be able to do some decent damage. And with Mud Bomb, you're still going to be able to hit those Steel types that the Flying type Pokemon in the back does not want to hit. So I feel like this team should work out fairly well. And it's just a very standard team for Mudboys. Like, it was always decent. Swampert is an alternative for the lead as well if you want to use Swampert instead, but here it's a video about the Community Day Pokemon, so yeah, let's move on to the next one, which is going to be something that I basically already showcased, but not with this moveset yet. Here we're going to run the moveset of Stone Edge and Awkward Tail, allowing you to have a little bit more coverage as a Say-Swap for this kind of team. You're going to have a lead of Pidgeot, and in the back I would recommend you a Swampert. If you have a normal Swampert, is in my opinion a little bit better than the Shadow Swampert in the current meta, and as you can see on paper already, this team is basically perfect. Basically everything that the lead loses to, your backline going to win against. And Pokemon like a Lantern, which might be a little bit tricky for your lead, you're going to have a little bit of a difficult time there with the Quagsire as well, because you're not running any ground type coverage other than the fast move. But you kind of want to bait them out anyway, that they swap into a different Pokemon, swap maybe into somewhat of a grass type Pokemon or whatever. And so you can sweep endgame then with the Swampert, which I feel like is the best play to go for. So this team should work out really well. Worked out fairly well as well for me with Wishcast in the back when I showcased it on my channel as well, like, I don't know, like 5 days ago or something. So check out that video as well if you want to see some more information towards this kind of team, but looks like a very solid one for sure. Moving on to the 3rd team for the Quagsire, we're going to basically have a little bit more of an ABC style. With Steelix, of course, you would also have the part ground typing, but you don't have the weakness to grass moves, which you, of course, yeah, even though you're ground type, you don't really have because of the Steel type. You could also use something like a Registeel in the back, the Alone Sandslash in the back. All those Pokemon should work out fairly well as well for this team. But I kind of want to shout, like, say a little bit about the Altaria as well, because Altaria seems to be a very strong Pokemon still, even though it got nerfed. I feel like a lot of people don't expect this Pokemon, so would be a solid one here. If you don't have an Altaria, but you played the recent Team Go Rocket event, maybe try out the Shadow Dragonite as well, which would be also a really cool Pokemon in general to build for the Great League. So this team looks like a solid one again. Here I'm using Earthquake as a Say-Swap. I feel like again you could go for Stone Edge over Earthquake. Really depends on kind of what you want to hit with it. Both of them are fine though, so like whatever you really want to go for is fine for the Quagsire here. And of course, now the more interesting one is going to be the Clodsire for a lot of people. This Pokemon actually has a lot of similar cores than the Quagsire. For example, the flying type Pokemon are kind of the same here, like the Mandibuzz, like the Mantine, like the Pelipper. But also you have like something here like the Serperior or the Lickitung, which is a great core with each other. but as we can see, of course, this Pokemon got nerfed quite a bit. I'm recording this, by the way, like 5 days before the community day actually going to happen, because I'm going to be away at that point, so I'm not sure if there's going to be some change to the moveset at this point as well. If you see some change, maybe you have to adjust it a little bit, but yeah, those are the moves that can currently learn. And I'm not going to take a look at Mega Horn at all today in those teams, because Mega Horn is for the standard play and not ideal. I would not recommend you to try it out for that one, but I still would recommend you to try to at least keep on around with Mega Horn for the Great League, because there is some play in certain metas maybe. Right now, I feel like Stone Edge, Earthquake, and Sludge Bomb are basically the moves that you want to go for. Acid Spray doesn't make sense anymore because you lost your Poison Jab, which would have been a really good core together, but like this, Acid Spray does not make any sense at all, and Water Pulse is a horrible move. So for you, Sludge Bomb, Earthquake as well as Stone Edge is kind of the way to go. And for Mud Shot and Poison Sting, it really depends on the meta, and I didn't really go for any kind of spacey movesets or whatever with this Pokemon here, because again, it really depends on what you're going to encounter. It's just like literally nuances here that are going to change if you're going to go for Mud Shot over Poison Sting. Mud Shot, of course, going to allow you to destroy other Clodsires, which is kind of important. So like if you run the Mud Shot plus Earthquake, this is going to allow you to win the mirror instead, like if the opponent is running Poison Sting, of course. So keep this in mind. Depends on what you want to try out, depends on what you're going to see. But first team going to be actually kind of interesting. Not sure how good it's going to be. I actually decided to cancel out Mantine here as a potential lead as well. Main reason for this is the Alolan Sandslash, basically, because Mantine cannot redo anything against, and your backline is also a little bit weak. But here we're going to have, for example, the Pelipper in the lead, which is going to be very decent against most of the Pokemon. And alternative, you could also here have the Umbreon, which would be also really cool. Just in general, very bulky Pokemon together with Clodsire. And your main goal is kind of for, especially with the Umbreon in the lead, keep your shields for the Nidoqueen in the back. Shadow Nidoqueen, especially here with the normal variant, Shadow is a little bit better to be fair, is going to be really, really good in the back especially, but also with 2 shields, it's going to be basically broken. Like honestly, this Pokemon is highly underrated. And what you can do basically with your Clodsire is you can try to bait out potential answers to this Pokemon. And here is the thing as well, where I'm not sure about the moveset as well. Poison Sting plus Sludge Bomb is basically the best neutral coverage that you can have, but you can also decide to go for something like Mud Shot, Sludge Bomb, and Stone Edge, which I feel like has also some kind of play. But it really depends on what you're going to encounter. I feel like this is going to be the most neutral one. But there are definitely arguments for a different kind of moveset on the Clodsire. But I feel like this team should work out fairly well. Next one, going to be my favorite Nidoqueen line. You maybe saw the video towards this as well on my channel, most likely already a few weeks ago though. This is a very good line. Like, this is a really good line if you have Nidoqueen in the lead. I feel like Clodsire is a little bit worse for it. It's not like way worse for it. It has also some benefits towards it. But yeah, like I usually play this line with Nidoqueen in the lead and had great success with this team. But here Clodsire is basically the same typing, so we can use it similarly, especially as you're going to have also coverage for both the poison type as well as the ground typing, which is kind of cool. So here we can see this is going to be a very balanced team. Looks really great on paper as well. There's basically not really any Pokemon that is really super difficult to deal with. I think like Mantine can be a little bit tricky. Also, Mandibuzz can be a little bit tricky, but that's basically it. Basically, again, here, Seisob is going to be either your Lickitung or the Dugong, and in the back, you're going to have a Dark type here of either the Umbreon, or what I like a little bit more, the Greninja, because it's one of my favorite Pokemon. But Clodsire can also basically deal with Grass type Pokemon, which is really cool for Greninja. So Greninja plus Clodsire is a really good core together. Really good together in general, like based on what they do in the game, what they kind of do in terms of the resistances and like weaknesses, which is really cool for each other. So yeah, very good core. Definitely cool one there. And we can move on to the third team. There's going to be another team afterwards, which is just an extra team as well for you, which is going to include both of the Clodsire as well as Quagsire. We're going to have here the Arctibex in the lead, the Gligar as well as the Clodsire. You have to say something about this one. It looks great on paper, and Arctibex is a really strong Pokemon. If you like saw some videos about me as well using it before, I think on the Haunter video I had it in there. It's one of my favorite Pokemon currently to use in the Great League. Really strong, like honestly, really strong one there. But for this team here, you have to be careful a little bit. You might want to go for Mud Shot over Poison Sting with the Clodsire. What you don't see, because for whatever reason it's not really in the top 20 Pokemon for PvPoke, is the Alolan Sandslash, and this can be a little bit tricky. I feel like the Lickitung is a little bit better against it, and still you're going to have a little bit of an issue, so you could use something like a Medicham in the lead as well. I didn't want to really include Medicham in today's video, but Here we go. You could use it instead as well, just to have a very good answer for the Alone Sandslash, which I think going to be a little bit more common. But otherwise, this team, if you don't really care too much about Alone Sandslash, would be a really good one as well with the Arctibax and Elite. Really strong Pokemon there. Have to be a little bit careful as well, by the way, with the Arctibax. You kind of want to have around like 5 attack on this Pokemon, because it's going to allow you to have a break point against Lickitung. There's also a bulk point against Lickitung, which is a little bit more difficult to get, but 5 attack is, in my opinion, something that you kind of really want on this Pokemon. Final team for today, going to be the double Quag line. It's not really that creative, it's just a very strong line in general. Here I would actually recommend you to go for Poison Sting Sludge Bomb for sure. You could even argue for going for Stone Edge instead. But that's going to be fairly fine for you. You're going to be able to win the Zero Shields against the Medicham, but because your entire team is kind of neutral against Medicham, what I would want to do there is I would most likely go up for a Sludge Bomb and throw the Sludge Bomb. And on the Psychic I would try to swap out into my Lickitung, because even if it fails, it doesn't really matter. Your Quagsire is kind of neutral against it. If you get some damage onto the opponent, one Awkward Tail going to be enough to knock out the Medicham anyway. So I would rather see the Medicham matchup a little bit more of a team effort, as Lickitung can win, I think, in the 0 as well in the 2 shield scenario anyway against Medicham. So I feel like this is going to be a decent one there. And also you have to keep in mind that the Medicham matchup that you see here is currently with Psychic, and Psychic is not even the most common moveset anymore in my opinion. At least in higher meta, I see way more often the Dynamic Punch, so it might be even a little bit better for you to play with the Clodsire there. A little bit worse, of course, for both of the Pokemon in the back then, but definitely still manageable. And this is going to be it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to leave a like. If you want to see this more often for community days, then let me know in the comment section as well, and I'll see you then. Bye bye.